Welcome back to Darts MMA. First off, we apologize for the late video. It's because we had issues both of our ends, be it the electricity or the internet or blah blah blah, all of that. So today we have a lot to discuss actually. First off, we have UFC 254 to discuss what happened in it, what happened after it. Without delaying it any further, let's start off. UFC 254, the main event, Khabib versus Gaethje. Khabib wins by second round submission, a mounted triangle choke on Justin Gaethje, and it was pretty emotional to say the least. Very very emotional. So I'd like you to tell me how that went off, how that match went off.
Going into the match, we were expecting this to be like little firecrackers, right? Because with
True.
little fireworks, because both of these fighters are equally strong, and we always envisioned that Justin Gaethje is going to give Khabib his toughest fight ever, possibly. But I think what was very evident in that fight in itself was that the pressure that Khabib puts on the other fighter, because he was trying to, like, he was taking so many punches from Gaethje, and he was taking those leg kicks from Gaethje numerous times, but that was not deterring him to not go forward, not walking him down in a way. But I think Justin was very good with his jabs. He was not backing down, but it just became like because Khabib also has a very good chin, as we know. He's not going to take he's not going to take shots that he takes shots in a very easy way. He will get hurt, but he won't back down. So I think that was there, and the way, if you see in the first round, Khabib was going for some takedown attempts, which Gaethje foiled actually in the very first round.
Are you talking about the first takedown
Yeah,
attempt?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The first takedown
Yeah.
attempt. Yeah. And after that, when it came to the second round, I think Gaethje understood that the pressure is too much, so he can't. Like, he had to really care about two things. Like, he had to care about how he has to maintain his stance in a way, to maintain the striking, but at the same time he also had to take care of the wrestling aspect of the fight. So I think
In my opinion, this was the best Khabib I've seen in all his career. Now, I don't know. There were, of course, a lot of factors behind it. The passing of his father, all the pressure he had on him,
right,
all talks about his last fight coming up 30 and 0 against, say, George St. Pierre or probably Tony Ferguson or the rematch with Conor. There were a lot of things. Plus, everyone was expecting Gaethje to get this one. Almost everybody was expecting Gaethje to be the guy to dethrone him. And all through this, he stayed calm. He stayed composed. He showed that none of it affected him. He always said that he would go on with father's plan and complete it the way he always does. But seeing Khabib in that ring at that time, it made my jaw drop because I've never seen Khabib put this much pressure on someone, and I've never seen Justin run so much. Justin being pressured, I've never seen that. Be it Dustin Poirier, be it Eddie Alvarez, two people he lost to, he still did not back out. He
he
stood
was
his
breathing
ground,
he was
and
breathing heavy by the second round itself. Like, somewhat he
he was breathing heavy. Yes, that is of course because he was running around so much. But of course, his coach Trevor Whitman also told him to take it slow,
yeah,
to
right.
not run so much. But I feel that is what Khabib does. Khabib has an aura around him that is invincible. That is proven now. It's invincible, and the amount of pressure he put on Justin and almost finished him with that armbar in the first round. If it wasn't for the bell, Khabib would have finished that round. He would have finished the match in round one, but he did not. And a fun fact behind that: Khabib went for a triangle choke apparently because his Justin's parents were there, and he did not want to make him suffer in front of his parents in pain. So he chose the best way to put him out, that is through a choke, the least amount of pressure as such on someone. So that is very thoughtful of Khabib. And of course, saying that we have Justin who tried his best. So much so that two out of the three judges gave the first round to Justin. effectively saying that he won the first round, which is very surprising considering how Khabib did get the takedown uh, at the end, at the last minute, if I'm not wrong.
The last
At the
5 minutes.
last minute, yeah, in the last minute of the first round. And Justin's leg kicks were effective, and I feel had the match gone on, it would have started showing its results, the leg kicks. Khabib would have stumbled, Khabib would have lost his footing, but he did not because he finished it. So hats up to Khabib on 29-0. And of course, after the match, he tells his team to calm down. They were celebrating. He tells his team to calm down, and then he broke down in the middle of the ring, started crying profusely, and that is someone no one expected. No one expected Khabib to this invincible man, this man who no one can defeat, to go on and break down like that in front of international television. And Justin goes on and consoles him, saying that his father is very proud of him, which again shows the whole narrative of this fight. They had utmost respect for each other during the match, before the match, and after the match.
I think one more thing just to add to that Justin Gaethje fight, because Justin was also very reactive in the first round. I think that might have been a negative of like a negative point for Justin, because he was not able to do his own variations and attack as much because he was being too reactive. He had to defend himself a lot more. And I think again to your point that he broke down, he literally poured it out. He literally poured his emotions, and he showed everyone that this whole the passing of his father's death, the breaking his toes,
Yes,
all these factors did really affect him, like not only mentally but also physically. We saw that during the weight cut, during the weigh-ins, and he was not.
so yeah, I missed that point out. I'm sorry for that. He had a broken finger in his left hand since October 8th. He had broken toes coming into the fight, and he also had mum.
Right,
So
right.
he was sick during the fight. And through all of that, he had a very difficult weight cut, as it was evident through his weigh-in. As soon as he heard that he made weight, he sighed. He had a sense of relief in himself that he made weight somehow. And he was the first to come to scale, so that was very surprising. And to see someone put in such dedication, such effort into the game, of course, everybody does put effort. There's no doubt about it. But to see this extraordinary level of effort, where others would usually back off or not go into the fight into the first place, Khabib went in with all his troubles, with all his uh, ailments, if you'd call so, and proved everyone wrong, proved himself right. Uh, of course, following that was the retirement talk. He said that he could not go on fighting without his father. It was very difficult for him, and so he said that it was his last fight in the octagon at 29-0. Of course, this came as a surprise to everybody, but Khabib to go off, everyone thought that he still had a fight left, and he left his gloves in there, which was a very solemn moment. Everyone uh,
When
in the
John
division and uh, around the place, in the MMA community as such, was shook at that fact.
when John Anik realized that pretty quickly when he was removing his gloves, he was like, okay, I guess he's going to announce his retirement. So let me ask the question myself. So that was a very a very emotional moment, but at the same time, it just shows it just goes on to show that he's a man of his word. At the same time, now he has said to Dana, possibly that he might talk to his mother. Maybe 30-0 is his.
Yeah, Dana has had talks with Khabib, and Dana feels that he will come back for 30-0. Although, of course, he was very, very emotional, and no doubt about it. He was so emotional in that ring. And it is usually the talk that no one should make a decision while in the ring because the emotions are very high, be it of happiness or sadness or anything of that sort. So, saying that, that does not leave the belt vacant as such. Khabib is still the lightweight champion. He might come in for 30 and 0. So who do you feel should be fighting against Khabib for that last match?
So if we go by that, if we go by that idea, basically Khabib is going to be the champion still, and he's not going to vacate the title. Maybe just Tony Ferguson is the. I think that's that's the perfect fight for him at this point, because everybody wants to see that fight. It's been cancelled 5 times already. So make it happen, because 30 and
Six.
yeah, because because anyway the next fight is going to be his last fight. And this is a fight that the fans have been asking for. Also, there's the factor of GSP versus Khabib. But if it's going to be about the title, let it be Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. Like that's what I think is much more appropriate in a way. And if he does vacate his title, if he's not the champion anymore, I think there should be an 8-man tournament, which I don't think Dana is ever going to approve of. But if they do if they do bring in like Charles Oliveira or Paul Felder, Kevin Lee is like number rank 10, but at least the top 8 guys maybe, including maybe like
Yeah.
Michael Chandler. I mean, at least a tournament would be a way more accurate way to look at, because every single top 8 fighter right now in the lightweight ranking has really proved themselves in the division. So I think Charles Oliveira too, in last fight against Kevin Lee. So I don't think.
Charles Oliveira is currently on a 7-fight win streak.
Right. So I think though it's nothing to be discounted. You have to. I don't think Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier should be about the title, if in case the title is vacated.
No. So Dana's confirmed that Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor will be a non-title lightweight fight, 5-round fight, of course.
Now the winner of that
Because
fight, the winner of that fight might get a chance, a title shot. Maybe.
yes. But of course, as a personal Tony Ferguson fan, I would want to see Khabib versus Tony. Have always been excited about that fight, and there's so many aspects to it. It's a dream fight. It's been cancelled around 6 times. I still remember talking with you way back in March of this year, saying this might get cancelled. This might get cancelled, and I did not want it to, but it did get cancelled at the last week. And so,
I think also the possibility. One more point. I think also the possibility of Tony Ferguson versus Khabib is, I think because Khabib's father wanted GSP versus Khabib to be the last fight, right?
yes,
That was his legacy fight.
yes.
I think that's also a possibility. Maybe like there's a 50-50. Maybe. I don't know. Even that fight is interesting. I mean, GSP versus is interesting, but like for the fight fans who have who saw this fight being cancelled like 5 times, I think they deserve to like really enjoy this.
And honestly, to see Khabib end his career with Tony Ferguson, the biggest, possibly the his arch rival
Right.
in the division, and to see Khabib finish with that would be a statement about statement, and there would be no beating to that. Khabib would be the goat at that point, which is another controversy we are going to come on soon.
Right.
But he would be the definitive goat at that point.
At least in the
Seeing
conversation.
how
At least in the conversation.
yes, seeing how Tony Ferguson had a 12-fight win streak, which nobody considers right now for some reason,
Right.
and if Tony defeats Khabib, this would be his comeback, his his definitive comeback. If that is the fight that he comes off with next, it would be insane. The stakes are very high right now. It's way more high than ever. Of course, Tony is respectful of Khabib. What do you call it? Khabib's position right now, seeing as how he's going through so many things, and of course, he has said it in multiple interviews that Khabib is in a dark place right now, and all respect to him, all help him. If he needs me, I'm here, which is of course very respectful. Even Conor, someone who Khabib has had the biggest beef with, said that he truly is one of the best grappling martial artists right now.
Right.
But that brings me to my next point. He also said that in a series of question and answers on Twitter recently, Conor said that he is the best grappling martial artist right now, but everyone knows that Conor has the answer to Khabib, which you could say it was proven because he is the only one to have a round over Khabib. Uh, so that also becomes a very, and of course, some might agree with this, some might not, but he does say that he did not have a proper camp during that time, and he still managed to get one round through it. So, yeah, my two choices would be uh, Khabib versus Conor 2 or Khabib versus Tony. Of course, Tony being my first preference, but yeah,
The thing with Tony is that because Gaethje has been fighting, like Gaethje was preparing to fight Khabib for like let's say the past few months. Tony was preparing, like Tony has been preparing to fight Khabib. Like Eddie Bravo once said that this is the biggest fight of
yes,
their life, right?
Tony was preparing for Khabib. If you take it from April 14th or 18th, it was somewhere around that time that their sixth matchup was going to be. And uh, Tony was preparing for Khabib for 8 months before that. And
Even before that,
people
right?
forget that.
The past few years too, right?
He,
Like all the
yes,
fights that have been cancelled during that time.
yes, exactly. People forget that he was prepping for 8 months for one opponent, cut weight two times, and then got a completely different opponent in Gaethje, who's a striker, not a grappler. So people should not be writing Tony Ferguson off, is my opinion in this. And of course, I'd love to see Khabib versus Tony, but only time can tell.
And I think also with Khabib versus Conor too, I think it passes over a lot of these guys, right? Because Conor has not been fighting for a long time now. Like he fought in January 2020 against Cerrone, but that was a welterweight fight, right? And
Yes,
that he still has to go through Dustin Poirier maybe, and maybe a tournament sounds much more sensible at this point. I don't think if Conor wins that fight, he should get a direct title shot. Maybe like let's do a four man like tournament or something. Maybe that also sounds much more appropriate.
yeah. There are a lot of options for the lightweight division right now. It's very interesting.
Right.
Which also brings us to that topic we mentioned before, the GOAT controversy, greatest of all time. So Khabib, after his fight, requested for only one thing, that he be put in the number one pound for pound spot. Now that spot was previously held by John Jones, former light heavyweight champion, and if I'm not wrong, he ties for most title defenses with Anderson Silva
Right.
at 12 fights, or maybe it's 11 fights. Way more number of title defenses against if compared against Khabib, who has had 3 or 4 title defenses in his name, and that brings in a very good debate as such. Because on one hand, if you see, none of them are wrong. Because if you see from Jones' point, yes, he has had the more title defenses. He has fought against much more dominant people compared to Khabib. And Jones said that Conor was his only proper opponent to fight. I mean, writing a Poirier like that is it's kind of stupid, but yeah. But then on the other side comes Khabib, who has lost only one round, which for me validates him as the pound for pound king right now. Because of course he has an undefeated record, has no bad track on his name as such. Now Jones has had quite his lot of controversies in the past, none of which would be mentioned here because monetization. Uh, uh, yeah, you can look it up for yourself. If you put up John Jones controversy, a list of it will come up. No disrespect to Jones, though. So, seeing it from that point, what do you feel? Who is the pound for pound king right now?
I think it's funny how the conversation went, right? Because Khabib was not claiming that he's the, name me the GOAT. He was just saying that name me the number one pound for pound fighter, which is true because he has been undefeated his whole life, and
Yes.
he defended his title 4 times. And like in the past 1 year, if you go by that, if you go by that analysis to make the point that Khabib is the number one pound for pound fighter, and then Jones took it too personally. And also, you have to understand that Jones, even though he is probably one of the greatest of all time, no doubt about that, he is a very skillful fighter, very technical, like spinning elbows. Like he was one of the pioneers of that. To be honest. So
Exactly.
yeah, so if we go like Jones has one defeat, right? One disqualification due to elbow drops, because that was a
12 to 6 elbow.
yeah, 12 to 6 elbows, right? And he lost that fight like that, and that's not a like like basically he has never been knocked out or he has never been submitted. But at the same time, he has had
Yeah.
bad rounds, right, against Thiago Santos and against Dominic Reyes. Some people argue that his
Yeah.
first fight with Alexander Gustafsson was, basically Alexander won that fight. Some people argue that. So basically,
Uh, Also with Dominic Reyes,
right, right.
most people thought that
Even
Reyes won that fight.
even Santos, because the Santos one was like a split decision, right? Because 2 rounds
Yes.
went to Jones and one went to Thiago. But even if you go by like, so basically he has had problems with in his fights where he was invincible. But that was you cannot make the same case with Khabib, for example. And also we can also make you can also understand where Jones is coming from. Jones has defended his title all his life. Also the Peds controversy to be like, I know we cannot mention that specifically, but even that
Hmm.
controversy, if we go by it was in a very small proportion, and it was and but even though he also tested positive before that 2 times, so it's a very muddled. He has a very muddled career, but he has had a very successful one too. Like you cannot completely disparage his successes, for the lack of a better term.
True.
So I think the argument is losing track, because the argument is not Khabib is the goat. Khabib the number one pound for pound fighter? Yes, is Khabib the greatest of all time? He's one of he should be in the conversation. Like there's no one goat, right? There's Silva, there's
Yeah, because if you go by all time, there are legends like Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell,
right.
Tito Ortiz, Anderson Silva,
Fedor,
a lot of those people, a lot of those people.
right.
So yeah, that settles that. On to the next on the card, Whittaker versus Cannonier.
Right.
Class act by Whittaker. My God, what a match! What a match! Utter dominance. So the scorecards were 29-28 all through the three cards, all through the three judges. I thought it was 30-27. I thought Whittaker won all rounds of that. Of course, Cannonier got the knockdown in the last round, but I mean, I feel that Whittaker was way more dominant, and considering what came out after the match was done, the information that came out. So basically, Cannonier fractured his orbital, of course. The orbital bone is basically the cheekbone, the bone that supports the eye, and he also fractured his left hand,
Right.
and it was a very bad fracture from the X-rays. And he fractured it by because he blocked Robert Whittaker's kick, his first head kick, and that says something about Robert Whittaker, because if you were to see his compare his match with Israel Adesanya when he was defending his title and lost it against Izzy, and when you see him fighting against Still or Cannonier right now, there's there's that difference, there's that gap in his play style that is fit. He mixes things up so much right now. He goes for a jab, then takes them down. He goes for the jab and goes for the head kick. Covers his kicks with a jab, covers his kicks with punches, takes them down, ground and pound. He has a vast variety of things that he's using right now. And the best part about it is he's not chasing a title right now. In his own words, he said that I don't care about. Of course, he has to face Izzy at some point, but he says that he does not care about the title. He just wants to be active. He just wants to fight because he enjoys it. This is something I feel that every fighter should be having. Often, people chase their title like the title is everything. Of course, the title comes with its own benefits, being monetary benefits. You get a bigger paycheck. Everyone's chasing you at that point because, of course, you have the title. You have the target on your back. You're being called out. You have different kinds of fights and all of those things. But to take charge and be like, okay, I'll fight anybody anywhere, shows that you are a class act. And Cannonier too, he took the loss with utter respect. He said that Whitaker was the better man that night, and if you go back and watch the fight, you would know that Whitaker was so dominant in that fight, and it was very good to see. So, of course, Jared also landed some very big leg kicks that did do its toll on Whitaker, but Whitaker powered through it and showed us. And of course, he proved his own thing in the pre-fight interviews. He did say that there's levels to this game, and I'm much better than him. Cannonier is a great fighter, great martial artist, but he's just better than him, and he proved that.
I think it's interesting how in that fight, in the third round, for example, Whitaker was going in for the ground and pound, right? He was trying to finish the fight, and we thought it was over. Like Jared is going to maybe it's going to a knockout or a technical knockout, and it didn't happen. He got up. He tried to grapple with him for a while. Then he knocked him down. So he gave him a very tough fight in the last round, and even that with a broken hand, right? With
Yeah,
yeah. So for
and an orbital ball.
yeah. So I think while getting hurt, he try to go through the fight. He didn't back down basically, and I think Cannonier and Whitaker both displayed an amazing co-main event, and I think that was my whole that was my I was thinking about that. Basically, the main event won't be as good as the co-main event, maybe because
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought the whole thing was going to do a UFC 248,
right, right.
where Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk put on a banger of a co-main event, and
What was the main event during that? Let's,
Izzy versus Romero.
right, right.
Uh,
But
so much of hype, and that match simply did not live up to its hype.
right. And somehow Whitaker is now saying that he will inevitably get the title shot. Like he's not rushing to fight Izzy or something. So I think Dana interpreted that in a very different way. Dana interpreted that sentence from Whitaker as, oh, he doesn't want to fight. So I think that was a
Which is not right. Which is not right.
I think he was
I thought so too in his interview.
right. I think he was very eager to make that move of moving Israel up to the light heavyweight. I think he was planning on that since a long time, and he finally got
Which then brings us to our next topic.
right.
Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion, is moving up to light heavyweight to challenge Jan Blachowicz, the new light heavyweight champion, for his title.
Who defeated
Essentially,
Dominic Reyes recently.
yes. Essentially, if Izzy wins this, he becomes double champ, a status that only a few have acquired in the sport. Some of them being Conor McGregor. Of course, Conor was the first one to do so. Daniel Cormier,
Amanda Nunes.
Amanda Nunes, yes. And if Izzy does it, Izzy would be the fourth person to do so. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that fight is interesting in a way because now the question is going to be, is Jones going to be coming back to the light heavyweight division?
It all comes back to Jones. It all comes back to
Right.
Jones.
So now it's going to be interesting if Israel wins that fight. Is Jones going to be like, let me get my belt back? Like that's what he said after Jan the fight against Dominic. That let me get my belt back.
Yeah.
I will go to the heavyweight division, but let me go back to light heavyweight first. So I think it's going to be an interesting turn of events in the coming few months. Do I think Israel has a chance? I do think that Israel has a chance, but also Jan is a power puncher, right? At the end of the day, and he has the he
He's
has
not just a power puncher, though. he did prove everybody wrong by putting off Dominic Reyes in the most technical fashion
Right,
possible.
right, right.
Waited his turn, accumulated damage over his chest, over his face, and eventually,
Over his torso too. Like he literally
yes,
let his torso.
exactly. And eventually, it just took one punch to put Reyes out.
Right, right,
He rocked him.
right. So is Israel going to see that like I don't know how to pronounce it.
Blahovic.
Yeah,
Blahovic.
Blahovic. Is he going to see that same Jan during his own title
Yes,
fight?
surely. I surely feel so. Jan, if anything, will come in more stronger for this fight because he has a point to prove right now.
Right, right,
Izzy has very big stakes here. If he wins, he becomes double champ.
right,
Which and as far as I know, nobody has become double champ in middleweight and light heavyweight.
right.
There has been Daniel Cormier who has done it at light heavyweight and heavyweight, but nobody has done it from middleweight. So that would be new for the division. Plus, if he loses his undefeated streak
Right.
of 20 and 0.
Right.
And for Jan to put that out is a very big deal for Jan because, of course, Izzy is a very decorated technical striker. He thinks everything through. All credit to his coach Eugene Berman and his gym, City Kickboxing. Uh, and City Kickboxing is no less. They have two champions right now: Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champion, and Izzy, the middleweight champion. So Izzy has a very big statement to make here. Uh, of course, Izzy also gets bragging rights because Izzy has his own fair share of beef with John Jones. They've been going back and forth since so long now. They've been going about for since the last year, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Since he won the title.
yeah, because Jones also said that Israel is scared of him. Like he may said
Yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah,
So if Easy, this is my personal opinion, if Easy takes the light heavyweight belt from Jan Blachowicz, he could have bragging rights saying, "You were scared, you ran off from this guy. This guy I defeated, now face me." Essentially pulling John Jones back into the light heavyweight division because John Jones is bulking up for the heavyweight division right now. He's almost confirmed to get into the heavyweight division and he will have a fight soon. I'm pretty sure about it.
I think
But
Dana is definitely looking at this as a pathway to that, like pathway to that super fight. Like he's
yes,
somewhere envisions that. Right?
because technically an undefeated light heavyweight champion against someone who now is the light heavyweight champion
Right, right.
would be insane. So, that's the thing. If you want to become an MMA fan right now, now's the best time.
Right.
We have a lot of things coming up. A lot of things.
Also, it's going to be interesting how the middleweight division is going to go. Like if Israel does keep both the belts, how is the middleweight division going to look like? Because now is Whittaker going to get the chance by next year? Is he going to face Paulo Costa because Paulo Costa is asking for a fight against Whittaker right now, and he's saying that you can enjoy your Christmas for now, but after that let's fight. So is that
Yes.
going to be because Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker sounds interesting to me at this point. Just for the sake of a non-title bout, not because the winner of the match gets a title shot. Because I think Whittaker naturally gets it, but that's going to be interesting too. We witness that fight.
Yes, truly. Costa versus Whittaker isn't something that's confirmed right now. Costa also had his eyes on Anthony Rumble Johnson,
Right.
championship contender. He almost got his championship, but lost against Daniel Cormier for the light heavyweight title. A lot of matches happening right now in many divisions, and it's quite interesting to see how these things are going to add up in the near future. The face of the UFC right now, as we see it, is going to change a lot in the next year.
I think
Let's see.
we also have to talk about the heavyweight bout between Alexander Volkov and Walt Harris, right? Because that fight was because it was a bittersweet moment for everybody because Walt Harris lost his stepdaughter last year actually, and he needed a comeback fight. He actually faced Alistair Overeem a few months ago, but he lost that fight, so he needed to win pretty badly against Alexander Volkov. And he was looking very strong in that fight. Like he was going for the strike. His striking was really good. He was putting the pressure on Alexander Volkov. There were a couple of body shots too. But after that, when Alexander Volkov landed that front kick, it was game over for Walt Harris.
Deep kick to the body.
Right. So I think
Volkov, I feel Harris tried his best, and Harris was much more fast.
Right.
Of course, he got out of the scrap against Volkov when Volkov took him by the fence and started pounding him against it. Harris got out of it, which I did not feel he would get out of, which made me feel that I was rooting for Harris in this fight. But then again, Volkov was way too technical. He used his height to his advantage.
Right.
Very tall guy. And he used his speed and technical prowess to get the win. And that body kick was killer. Harris moaned out in pain at that time. And he went on and curled up against the fence, which just shows that when someone curls up like that, you know that the fight has ended. There is no coming back from that fight.
And then there's the Jacob Malcolm versus Phil Harris fight, which I think Phil Harris is definitely someone to look forward to because he
18-second knockout.
Right. He was in different promotions. He also tried getting into UFC during the Contender Series a long time back, but he was not able to. And then he joined Bellator for a while. It didn't work out. So this guy has a story of having struggled his whole life to reach UFC and fight the best that are out there. So I think that match was also made it pretty clear that Phil Harris does have a future in the UFC, and he probably will face top 10 guys in the near future.
Yes, Phil Harris is a very promising contender as such. He, of course, took Jacob Malkoun out in the first 18 seconds. But what we are not mentioning here is that Phil had the fight in his hand from the very first go.
Right.
Because he put in so much pressure. And we have to mention, Malkoun is the main sparring partner for Robert Whittaker.
Right.
So Malkoun, it wasn't like Malkoun was just some nobody. He was sparring with the best. He has trained with the best. And for Phil Harris to come out and make a statement like this, where he just disposes someone off in the first 4 punches, is something like Chimaev level, to be honest, with what he did with Meerschaert.
Also, continue, Guru.
Bol.
Also, we have the Lauren Murphy versus Lilia Shakirova. If I'm not pronouncing the name wrong, but that fight, because it was Lilia's UFC debut, and Lauren Murphy has been a veteran, not only in
the game,
not only in UFC but in MMA in general. But it was her flyweight. She's still undefeated in the flyweight division. Lauren Murphy is, and Lilia has Lilia tapped out when Lauren Murphy put her in a choke. So I think Lilia will get much better fights in the near future.
It's just a start for Lilia as such, and she shouldn't be bothered by it. She came against first off. She was last moment fight. Lauren Murphy was supposed to fight someone else in that match, but they capped out at the last minute, and Shakirova came in. So she has nothing to be disheartened about. She lost against a very well-decorated veteran in the division, and so. Shakirova, for all you can tell, did present a very good threat to Murphy in that whole fight. So she has the skills. She just needs to go up the ranks and eventually come back to the fight.
Also, she's also eyeing for that title shot against Valentina.
Lauren Murphy is eyeing for the title fight against Valentina Shevchenko, the current flyweight champion. Yes, it is interesting, but with the way Valentina Shevchenko is, she's as dominant as Amanda Nunes. In fact, she is, if I'm not wrong, she has only lost to Amanda Nunes and maybe a few others. So to see someone as dominant as Shevchenko go against a well-decorated veteran like Murphy would be very interesting. Yes.
Magomed Ankalaev and Ion Cutelaba, which basically, that we remember that fight happening in February maybe, and
Yes.
that fight was really weird. It had a really
It
weird
had
ending.
a very controversial end as such. So, if I'm not wrong, Cutabara, in his own words, he said that he was acting knocked out, as if he was hurt by Ankalev's punches, but the referee went in and stopped the fight.
Right, right.
So, which, if you look at the match, is true. It was a very early stoppage, and the referee should not have stopped that. So this was a redemption arc for Ankalev and also a rematch to prove who's the better fighter between the two of them. And it was a very good rivalry. But of course, Ankalev goes in and finishes it in a very dominant fashion, knocked Cutelaba out with a flurry of punches, and it just shows that often at times rivalries don't seem as they see to be. Uh, Sometimes people or maybe Ankalev just improved in his game in the span of time that he had. Could be any of those things, but Ankalev looked very, very strong in that match.
I think even in that last fight that they had, Magomed was very, very much more active in that fight. He was throwing a
Yes,
couple of jabs during that time, and that's why I think Eon made that decision to fake getting hurt, because maybe
yes,
Magomed would have
yes.
stopped throwing those punches and Eon would have capitalized on that. But
Maybe Ankalev could have rushed him and Ian could have caught him at that time, but of
right,
course that did not work.
right, and the referee made a huge mistake by not noticing the foot movements, for example. Like, he really made a
Yes,
bad call, which I think, but at the end of the day, uh, they proved that who is the better fighter among those two. So yeah, that's the complete main card for UFC 254.
thanks for watching. If you like these videos and if you want to come in on MMA, follow us on Dars MMA, Dars.MMA at Instagram. We will be posting daily updates and things happening in the MMA world as such. Also, do look out for this space because we do often discuss a lot of videos. We'd have more things in the future, some of which still have to be made, but we'll let you know about it. And of course, share it around. Spread the love of MMA. Stay tuned, stay safe, and bye bye.
Thank you, guys.